Today's guest is Melissa Aarskaug, Vice President of Gaming for Gaming Laboratories International's technology division called Bulletproof. She's the founder of the Executive Connect podcast, and she is driven by a passion for people, community, and building authentic relationships. Yes, I love that. Melissa, so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much for inviting me to be here today with you, Elizabeth. I'm excited to talk with you on my journey.
Yes. So to that end, can you start a little bit by telling the audience a little bit about what you do, why you do it, and what you love about it?
Absolutely. I guess I identify as an engineer brained person in kind of a sales strategy body. So a lot of what I feel like I do in the world is solve problems. And that just happens to show up for me in sales because I work in an industry that's full of technology problems. So I have work for the rest of my life.
Yeah, that's pretty much you will always have a full plate. And that's awesome. So you spend a lot of time talking about how important people are and in relationship building, both inside and outside of work. Tell me a little bit about how this became a focus for you.
Yeah, I'll start a little bit back in my early days. Back in my college years, I wouldn't have considered myself an outgoing person. I wasn't someone that would walk up to someone and start a conversation. I was the exact opposite. I'd show up to a networking event and I'd hope somebody would talk to me about something. And so I was the exact opposite. And I think back then in college, LinkedIn was just starting to come around. And I found it a little bit intimidating to share with people who I was on the inside. So I spent the beginning parts of my career telling people a little bit about who I was professionally and absolutely forgetting who I was personally. And so when I got into the workforce, I was not prepared to show up at the table and speak my mind. I didn't have a lot of confidence. A lot of times people asked me how old I was because I did look a lot younger than I was. And so I always felt like I had to prove myself in those early days where people questioned me because I was girly working in engineering and I was young and blonde and I wore makeup. And there was a point in my career, Elizabeth, where I absolutely stopped wearing makeup and try to really go inside my shell and draw the least amount of attention I could to myself, where I'd wear bigger clothes. I'd really dress like a boy. I'd put a hard hat on. I'd put a ponytail on my hair and I'd just show up and I'd work because I felt like I was more received that way than I looked on this podcast today. I don't think people, and to give those people the benefit of the doubt, back then I was younger than them. Some of the people that reported into me could have been my grandfather, and I was young, to be fair, for the roles that I had stepped in.
So where did that change in your journey? Was it a mental shift? Did something happen? Did you feel like you had to give yourself permission to be authentically you?
100%. There were times where people would talk to me like I was a complete idiot. They were very frustrated, maybe not directly at me. Things weren't going the right way on the job site or on the project. And I just happened to be the low person on the totem pole that ended up getting things taken out on them a lot. And so I remember I was built pretty tough. My dad was in the military and I played sports. So I was internally built pretty tough, externally built tough. So there is that softer side of people that we want to be liked. We want to show up to be our authentic self. So the shift for me really was I got out of the victim mentality where I'm like, why are these people constantly attacking me for stuff that is not my fault and I cannot control? And I started asking questions like, what happened? Why do you think this is my fault? And really getting into the people side and the understanding of why they were yelling at me for something that wasn't even my job. I'll never forget, there was one time we had in engineering, we had a builder that came in on the project and he screamed at me about why the food wasn't set out for their lunch meeting. He didn't realize that I was actually one of the engineers that was supposed to be at that meeting. And I was in my early 20s. So I scurried and put all the food together. And then I sat down and I didn't I didn't tell them I'm not the delivery person or I'm not the person setting these meals up, but I just did it. And
Yeah.
I didn't take offense to it. And this person never apologized. He just kind of went on his way. But I think to answer your question, I never went into the victim mode. I never attacked the people. I just sat in it and asked the right questions to understand why they were showing up aggressive or asking me to set up something that wasn't my responsibility, and just really started building communication between all people, whether it was a janitor, a front desk person, people I worked with, people in networks I was building. I just showed up and asked questions.
So imagine going through that personal journey yourself of just growth and bringing your full self to work. That's got to reflect in your management style today. So how do you pay that forward with your current staff, and how do you encourage that same thing? I'm sure you recognize the signs in other people that are maybe holding back a bit. So how do you go about bringing that forth in them?
Yeah, and I think it's across to all leadership. Like the way I look at leadership, I think is not necessarily just by title. I'm a title that manages people. I look at leadership as us also leading ourselves to any of our personal goals, our family goals, leading my children. I look at leadership for all of us as really and a really important skill to develop, and how it comes across and how it shows up is first understanding, because sometimes people don't want to show up to the table and tell you that they're married or they have kids. And I was one of those people where I didn't show up with a new manager and say, "Hi, my name is Melissa. I'm married and this is who I am and this is what I do." And I was slow to give people that who I am, opening the hood of who I am. And so I appreciate that with people. I ask questions, and if they respond shortly, I leave a little silence, and then I listen. And if they want to share more, they share more. And then the next time I talk to them, I'm like, "How did your son's track meet go? How did things go with your vacation with your wife?" And I ask questions, and then they're willing to share more. I don't interrogate people with questions, and I
Yeah.
don't push if they don't want to share.
Yeah. So reading the other person, following up on, yeah, it's relationship building. It all comes down to people and relationship building, right? Yeah. So, question for you too. As you're obviously you've been successful in your career, you have a huge social media following now, and I think that part of what people respond to you is you are authentic and you do talk a lot about family and personal life and how that balances with work. You mentioned your kids. How do you feel? Do you feel like now it's one big blend, or how do you bring everything together?
That's a great question. And I think for me, I will tell you my earlier, before LinkedIn, Melissa, I never shared about who I
Yeah.
was and what my hobbies were and I was always just working behind the scenes on my personal life and then only sharing my professional life. And I started about, I would say about 2 years ago, when I officially decided to rip the band-aid off and share all of my life and the difficult things, the good things, but all the things. I think on social media, we always only see what's good. We don't see what's not good. And I find that we learn as humans best from the mistakes, the challenges, how we're showing up. So I really ripped that band-aid off, and I
Mm,
started to blend what it's like to be a mom, to run across the globe and manage a very young child. My son was an infant when I was running to Europe, and really showing up how our family was taking on my career, because it was a cost to our family, because I'd fly my husband. If I was traveling for 7 weeks, I'd fly my husband. They'd spend money doing things while I was working. And it's a big juggle, but I really am authentic with it. And I always help people, Elizabeth, no matter where I am. Now that I'm busier, I balance it and I tell people, "Hey, circle back with me in June," or "Hey, call me in July." But I am always willing to help people no matter what it is.
I know paying it forward is really important to you. And you have an award that you received on the whole area of paying it forward. Is that something you just saw naturally as you were growing yourself, wanting to do that? Or was there a certain turning point in your life of, hey, I got to really focus on the next generation of leaders? Or how did that thought process come about?
Yeah, and I feel like in our world today, we're so detached and we're so segmented of who we are. Okay, I'm a woman, you're a man. Okay, you're a this, I'm a that. And I don't like that at all. All my
Yeah.
friends have different backgrounds, different cultures, men and women. And I think that is what's been such a game changer for me is I have a diverse group of people in my network and I don't only focus on one viewpoint. I have a lot of different viewpoints. And looking at my closest friends, they're nothing like me, absolutely nothing like me. And some of my best friends are stay at home moms. And they have a different perspective for me. And they're like my board when I'm working too hard. I talk to them about how to balance stuff. And then I have my professional friends that I talk about with like, how do you juggle time zone changes and how do you
Mm,
navigate? So I have a board of people, no matter what it is I'm trying to solve, I ask. And whether it's my health, my wealth, different ideas. I have a diverse group of people and I'm non-transactional with it. I think a lot of times we're all showing up on social media for people to like and comment and do all the things, but we never really give that. And so
mm.
I think showing up in today's world transactionally is going to give you back more transactional relationships versus showing up to help people in an authentic way and in non-transactional. Okay, you bought coffee last time, I'm going to buy it next time. I think when we show up like that, we get that. So much of
Yeah.
what I have received, and we joke about this, my older kids joke about this. When I had my son during the pandemic, I had all these boxes of like gifts and toys and diapers and baby bottles that showed up on my doorstep. Not because I told my clients that I was having a baby. So many people wanted to give me those items and they sent it to me because I had already built the relationship. I think that's the way that people need to be focusing, not only personally, but professionally on their careers. Like, how are you showing up? I have a job to do for the company I work for. Absolutely. And I do that. And I'm the hardest working person I know, but I also am building relationships through my journey in the industry I work for. And some of them are non-revenue generating relationships and some are they don't need help today, but they're authentic relationships and they know they can count on me if they need something.
Okay, there's a lot there that we can dig into. One thing you talked about a little bit is having a lot of different, almost like a mentor cabinet, even if informally. That whole idea, I talk a lot in Cake on Tuesday and just in general about the idea of diversity of thought. I think we talk a lot about diversity of all these other categories, but sometimes we don't get into diversity of thought of people coming from different walks of life, different opinions, and they're going to be the ones that challenge you or push on you or call you out when you have a crazy opinion, that kind of a thing. How do you apply that? You mentioned a little bit of, it sounds like in your personal life, you have a panel of people that you go to. How do you apply that at work as well, of having really inviting those differing opinions?
I get feedback. I think feedback is such a blessing in all facets of my life, whether it's my work life or my personal life. I ask for feedback and I get feedback. And sometimes people aren't comfortable giving feedback. You might ask somebody, how do I do as a manager? How am I doing as your boss? And they might be afraid to say, terrible or great because they feel like they would suffer honest feedback. And so I think you need to build the relationship first with people and then give them opportunity to share it with you and say, yeah, I know sometimes I can do X. I want to make sure I'm not doing X with you. Do you feel sometimes that I'm maybe not listening as much as I should, or I'm so busy that you don't feel like I'm as available as I should be to you? And getting that feedback. And sometimes people just aren't going to give you the feedback. You have to probe for it and give them some symptoms that they could pick from and give them the opportunity to feel safe, like you're sharing with them what they might be experiencing.
Let's talk a little bit about joy. You, at all of your posts and focus online, it looks like you just have fun at work, which is fantastic. And I'm a big fan of, if you're going to work hard, you have to play hard. You need the balance of the two. Can you talk a little bit about how you interject fun in your everyday? And you talked about your personal transition and your personal journey of bringing your full self to work. Was the ability and permission to have fun at work, was that something you had to go through and evolve over time? Or have you always tried to just have fun where you spend the majority of your waking hours?
I think that's a really difficult question to answer, but also a great question to answer because I think back in my early part of my career, I had to prove myself, right? I had to do the hard work. I had to prove myself. If I showed up all the time like I was having fun all the time, I question if I would have been taken seriously. So I think there's a
Mm,
fine line between, I don't remember a day in my life that I don't have some form of joy. I every single day am living the life that I am proud of. I feel I have all the box and the buckets filled in my life. There's ones that I'm working on more than others, and I
mhm.
integrate that into each part of my life. But I feel I travel a lot for work. When I'm home away from work, I plan things for my family. I plan activities, I plan dinners. I sit down one on one with my kids. This weekend, I was very busy with working on my job and then very busy, on my podcast on Saturday, and then taking my daughters to find dresses for plays they're in, and taking another daughter to interview for a potential job, and taking my son to the park. So I really am focused in every capacity on what I'm trying to do. It's not half in one area and half in the other. It's all of me at that moment where it needs to be. And it doesn't mean that I'm less of an employee because I want to spend time with my children in the evenings. And it doesn't mean that I'm less of a mom with my family because I need to take a late night call with my family. But I'm making sure everybody understands and is aware of what's going on. So there's transparency across everyone.
And that's a busy schedule. I won't ask you about balance, but I am curious to know, how do you really focus on protecting yourself and protecting your own joy through all that?
I start every day with me, always, with no exceptions. Every single day starts with me because I can't feed other people and bring joy to other people's life if I'm not living and coming from a place of joy. So this
Mm.
morning I was up at 4:30. I got myself going. I have my quick meditation. I do my exercise. I come home. I get my family ready. I get everybody through their morning process and I start my job. And some days my husband has to take that shift because I have early calls and then I take the evening shift, but we work around communication, collaboration, and I call them the blue jobs and the pink jobs. He does a lot more of the blue jobs and I do a lot more of the pink jobs because we're both just better at those. My husband will run the dishwasher and I'll load the dishwasher and I'll help take out the trash. And, we really work as a team unit and we have our children that work as part of that team. So I'm not fully leaving work, starting my evening, cooking, cleaning dishes, doing that whole process. I have a team of people at home that help me, just like I have a team of people at work that help me the same. And so everybody knows their role. And sometimes people that, are on the blue team have to do pink team jobs, and sometimes the pink team. So I think that's the important part. Like I don't have a marketing title. I don't focus fully on marketing, but I'm always supporting marketing. I'm always supporting different teams within inside of our organization. It may not be my job, but I am helping make things easier for them so they can make things easier for me.
I love this focus on the constant growth and discovery because I'm a huge fan of life is a journey, not a destination. We don't arrive, we don't have it all figured out. Any advice you would give to somebody who is on this journey and maybe they're past that first part of their career of, hey, I proved myself, I did the hustle. I know I need to shift now to more be a leader that's setting an example and paying it forward. Advice that you would give to them as they're trying to make that transition for themselves.
Know what you're focusing on and really who you are and like how are you showing up. Like I am very grounded and what I want to leave the world with. And I'm very clear about all the things I'm working on. And there's a lot. I'm really clear on what percent of me I can give each one of those things. And so some things, I'm co-writing a book. I've been co-writing a book for a very, very long time, but it's just showing up now socially. But a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, you wrote a book quick. No, I've been doing a lot of this for a lot of time, but other things were a focus more than the book was. And so I think know what percent you can show up for things. And if we all have 168 hours in a week, how are we spending them? A good part of my week, for certain, 7 of those hours are going to health and wellness for me and myself, 100% every week, always, no matter what, no exceptions. So if I miss an hour one day, I do 2 the next day. And if I miss an hour the next day, I do 3. Or maybe I do a yoga class and get a massage or something like that. I really work with math numbers and know what percent, because we all only have so much energy we could show up with in the world today. And if we're all burnt out and stressed and we have no joy, we're not going to have joyful relationships.
100%. That's great. I like the idea of looking at it as a math equation and make sure your priorities align to how you're spending your time. That's perfect. Melissa, it's always fun to chat with you. Tell people where they can find you if they want to learn more.
Yes, absolutely. I am big on LinkedIn, Melissa Aarskaug. I have all the social channels under Melissa Aarskaug. I also have a YouTube channel called the Executive Connect Podcast, where we talk about the executive mindset and how to grow and scale your career. But I'm always happy to have a chat to support you in your journey and your joy.
Love it. Melissa Aarskaug, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Join us next week for more cake.
Thank you.